Being single, it seems like 50% of the women I have dated make these claims. It's disturbing. Story 1. It's the same thing as dudes calling their exes crazy. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I tend to try and listen to why they thought this more so than the accusation itself. Story 2. My ex would often misinterpret things I said or would talk over me and not hear me. Ironically, usually this would result in her assuming I said something, filling in the gaps with her imagination or assumptions that I had not. I would then repeat calmly what I had just said, hoping for her to understand what I meant to say. She would then stick to her assumption of what I said, not actually acknowledging what I actually said. When I would try to clear up the confusion, she would accuse me of gaslighting her by changing what I said, when in fact, I was literally repeating the same phrase as before, verbatim. This is one example of misuse of the word gaslighting. In reality, the problem was that she simply wasn't listening to what I was saying and treating her assumptions as facts, then failing to adjust when her assumptions proved to be false. Story 3. You don't have to date a lot of people to run into one psycho. Isn't it almost a universal thing that just about everyone has had at least that one ex that was a disaster? Story 4. Have you asked any of your friends who are women about this? I spent more of my life than I care to admit underestimating women's experiences until I realized I just wasn't the kind of person to have good enough friends, women or otherwise to be honest, to confide that kind of thing in me. Story 5. I know everybody is saying it is a coping mechanism in the comments, and I agree to an extent. But I think the number of people out there, male and female, that are toxic in relationships, or that are okay at first but become toxic towards the end of the relationship, should not be underestimated. Lots of broken souls out there these times. I would say the reason you hear more women say it is that men are probably less likely to open up easily, and I suppose you only date women and talk about this with women. Of course, it is also a coping mechanism. Nobody wants to be a bad person, and accepting your own toxicity can be hard. Story 6. Men often deceive women to initiate dates, leading to accusations of manipulation or narcissism when women discover their true character. This behavior is influenced by traditional gender roles, where men are the instigators and women the passive judges. In my 20s, I aimed to impress women based on looks before determining if I truly liked them. This pattern, reinforced by societal expectations, is common among men, who often hide their true selves initially. While claims of gaslighting or narcissism may be valid, they might also arise from women feeling misled after realizing the man's initial presentation was deceitful. As I've matured, I've recognized that dating can resemble a game. Although deception can lead to short-term success, it hinders the development of healthy relationships. In my 30s, I've worked to overcome this negative habit, understanding that while it might lead to brief encounters, it ultimately sabotages genuine connections. Story 7. To cover themselves? They do it on their own and are completely unaware of it. Women are terrible at self-criticism. Ask a man what he did wrong in his relationship and he will know. Vice versa, not so much. Once you see it. Story 8. A lot of men are very weird or different when alone with their women versus when other people are around. It's also a bit of a buzzword these days, so that adds to it. Story 9. Because people in general, I'm convinced anyway, don't really know what being gaslit means. If they are making you question reality, then it's gaslighting. If they are just mad about something you said, and it doesn't make you question reality, then it isn't. I'm not sure why those two things are hard to understand either. Story 10. Is it surprising that 50% of the women you've dated have gone out with a narcissist or been manipulated? Not really. There are a lot of unpleasant people out there. Discussions like these in Ask Men really bother me. Nowhere is there a comment where we consider, even for a second, that these women's experiences are valid and maybe, just maybe, there's something that we are doing to cause it. No, surely they are too foolish and influenced by social media to know what they've been through. Surely, according to most of the comments on this thread, it's they who are wrong, foolish, and irrational. Women don't know what they're talking about. It's all social media psychology and nonsense. It couldn't be us. We are amazing. And watch me get criticized for pointing out the ironic truth. Really, I think it's about half and half, half social media psychology hype. Half guys can be really inconsiderate sometimes. Story 11. Not a man, but I work with mostly men. I am in software engineering. A lot of men claim their ex is a narcissist. I think this is just people of any gender claiming their ex is terrible and using these labels to explain. I do think women are more likely than men to give you their thoughts on their ex in a casual conversation, though. Story 12. They are not too bright and use words out of context because they saw them online but do not understand what they mean. No, Doris, someone disagreeing with you is not gaslighting. Story 13. It's the Twitter and social media nonsense. It's basically people who are supposedly oppressed or just don't agree with your views, perspective, opinion, or politics calling you something or claiming something about you they have learned can get one canceled and or make you stay quiet out of fear you will be fired from your job, banned from a Reddit sub, socially destroyed, doxxed, etc. It isn't just this particular issue. It's the use of terms like boomer, cringe, fascist, racist, sexist, misogynist, and so on. I see it all the time, and the people that do it can kiss my ass. Story 14. Easier to point fingers. I see men do this too and speak negatively about their ex. We may not use those terms like manipulation, but both men and women essentially do the same. To me, those who constantly speak negatively about their ex are typically part of the problem. Obviously, there are cases where one partner is completely at fault, but you are just doing yourself a disservice by letting that negativity live rent-free in your head. Story 15. It is a word. It was not a word 30 years ago so much, but the behavior it describes was a thing 30 years ago. It just has a name now. Also, no one is using this word, and women are not saying anyone is using it. That is just your imagination. Story 16. I think some women believe any action towards them that they don't like is narcissism. They don't actually know what the word means. They just heard it and thought narcissist was a synonym for jerk. Story 17. It is the lack of accountability in their choices in men. They are indirectly telling you the type of men they are sexually attracted to. When people show you who they are, believe them the first time. Story 18. There's plenty of narcissistic gaslighting people in this world, but I will understand the woman's point of view 100% of the time until proven wrong, which comes pretty quickly. Who are you trying to kid here, truly? After a few minutes on your profile, it's easy to understand your mindset and how biased you are. So really, do you want to talk about this? Or do you want to use this as a jumping point to criticize women? We know the answer from your history. Story 19. Both genders do this. Some people are pieces of shit, and nowadays we are becoming less quiet about it, less willing to accept abuse, which is a good thing. However, because of it, many people use buzzwords and claim their ex is a gaslighter, narcissistic, toxic abuser, and so on, when really they were just bad for each other. This is a bad thing. Story 20. I think the answer is quite simple if you think about how the terms narcissism and gaslighting tend to be used in non-clinical settings. If you think about how people use those words, it becomes pretty obvious that nearly all of both victims and perpetrators will accuse their partners of this. Someone who is selfish will feel like others are selfish for not giving them what they feel they deserve. Someone who likes to manipulate others by framing arguments in a way that makes the other person look bad will accuse anyone else of that if the person attempts to reframe the argument or explain how that's not what they actually meant. Story 21. My wife of 30 years claimed after all that time I was gaslighting. I had no idea what the phrase meant. She said she was leaving, and so after a couple of decades trying to save the marriage, I just said, yeah, I think it's best. A few years later, I was intrigued about what gaslighting meant and what caused it. I did a Google Trend search. The same year she told me I critically analyzed if I was, and I absolutely was not. I saw that the term exploded in 2018 to 2019. She'd never mentioned it before. I asked her recently when she first heard the term, and she said she had watched the film as a teenager. That's possible, as she was a fan of old black and white films. But I think its reemergence as a massively popular criticism of relationship difficulties is because of its viral boost online from 6 years ago. Story 22. Projecting is their biggest flaw. Remember when she accused you of cheating? She was doing it. Remember when she accused you of being a narcissist? She is the narcissist. Remember when they would say the most insane things? It's because their minds were reminding them of themselves. Story 23. It's really common once things go sour between a couple that they start acting terribly and completely rude to the other person. They say things and act differently, which sends major complicated mixed signals to the other person. They believe you've become another person and feel deceived and manipulated somehow. Story 24. His own lawyer called him one. His dad is officially diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, and his mom is diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder and obsessive-compulsive disorder. Gaslighting is really common in both genders now that we have a name for it. Story 25. It's not a woman thing. Both men and women almost always want to blame the other person for what went wrong. Before these terms came up, there were other terms. Now we have these. Story 26. They love to use those trendy buzzwords because they feel it's more convincing, adds validity to their argument, and enables them to provide fewer details. Story 27. Because they have become those buzzwords thrown around like candy at a parade, it takes away any blame from them, and anyone hearing their story will pity them, all while that main person is probably using the term incorrectly. Story 28. I don't know, things are crazy. I don't know about other women as I can only speak to my ex-wife. I haven't been trying to date lately, but when I hadn't heard this for real. My ex-wife just said I was gaslighting and belittling her last night. My 12-year-old daughter is in theater, and her class had a play this week on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I went on Wednesday. Thursday, my ex went. Before she got there, I said to get her ticket online to save $2. What? How? Why didn't anyone tell us? I'm here right now. I'm leaving. She's known for months. Why do we have to pay to get in? She should have gotten us tickets. This is stupid. I'm not going. You're not going to make me feel bad. I don't care. You can come get her after. I'm not bringing her to you. I'm tired. I've been up since 3:15. Hangs up the phone. That's pretty close to her exact words. She and my daughter have been having a rough relationship for a while now. I texted and said, "This is really important to her. You need to reconsider going. This is a perfect opportunity to show you care, even if you don't." Regarding the play, her response was, "Stop gaslighting me. You always make me feel bad and blame me for everything." She has this pattern of saying whatever it is isn't her fault, finds ways to deflect fault, blame someone or something else, and will find some kind of undertone or infer something from what you said that isn't even remotely close to what you said to steer the conversation into it somehow being your fault. Sometimes we would argue over something, and she would make me think the fight was way worse than it was like a day later. This usually happened when we drank. I started recording conversations to play back when she said, "I was an angry drunk and I didn't remember." She really had me convinced I was blacking out and being abusive. Quickly found that wasn't the case. I digress. It's ironic that my ex accused me of gaslighting when she literally checked basically all of the boxes for what it is. I think she really is a narcissist. Story 29. Because the terms are a part of the zeitgeist, theories grow and shrink over time, and gaslighting was explained recently to the younger generation, and it got accepted as a model for explaining a lot of negative social interactions. The next generation will have something similar. Story 30. I am always skeptical whenever I hear them say that because as the relationship continues, I start to notice that they are the ones who do the things they claim their exes did to them. Story 31. Emotional immaturity. Because a lot of people are emotionally immature, we don't know how to properly address our problems, wants, and needs with our partners or most people in general. This leads to miscommunication, possible resentment, and a myriad of other problems. We also don't know how to respond to our partners when they come to us with their problems, wants, and needs. Do you try to communicate in a way where they feel heard, not judged, and loved? I started asking what they are looking for before I even answer. Do they need to vent? Do they just need reassurance? Do they want to hear your advice? Most of the time, people just want to be heard and supported. To talk about it and get it off their minds. How many people do you know who actively try to do this for others? Story 32. 2 things. First, people try to explain their breakups by blaming the other party for being a terrible person, which is true at times, because posting about how your ex was a narcissist and a terrible person will get you more internet points than just saying he's boring or I met someone cuter or we were just not compatible. Second, As people are becoming increasingly aware of how abuse in a relationship works and that many people suffer from it, words like gaslighting or narcissism become part of the common discourse to a point where their importance is vastly overblown. People start calling anyone they don't like, or who reacts differently from them, a narcissist without knowing what the word means and that it's a real mental health disorder with a medical definition. People who are chronically online imagine that the rate of narcissistic people is much higher than it is in real life and call all discourse they don't agree with gaslighting. Story 33. Gaslighting is code for holding women accountable. Whenever an ex-boyfriend of hers brought something up to her attention that he did not agree with, she would call him sassy or accuse him of gaslighting. If you ask a woman why her previous relationship ended, it's never her fault. It's always the man's fault. Women lie to save themselves from criticism.